All right. Good day to everybody. Welcome back to Stone Soup for Contemporary and Future Descendants. This is episode. How's that for a fire horsey start? Episode 34, Fire Horse. I think it might be double Fire Horse. We'll have to dig into what the real zodiac sign is this year, but this is an exciting one, kind of carrying into the second year we've done a theme with the zodiac and the Lunar New Year. I'd like to welcome my brothers. I'm going to start with the birthday boy. Brett, you were in Italy last year, so we had to make up an episode for you without you as a trick. This year you get to be with us, so happy birthday, man. I'll start with you.
Hey, thanks for including me on my birthday. It's a nice gift to be here. I like I like doing what we're doing. Fire Horse is a fun theme, so I'm excited to get into the music.
Yeah. Well, Sean, this has been a theme of themes, kind of you brought to the fold too. So how you doing this morning? How you feeling?
Yeah, it's all good. I'm psyched to be here. I love talking about these themes and the music that relates to it. It's fun to do the recording on Brett's birthday, and I'm glad you remembered, Grant, that we celebrated this by basically leaving him out of a surprise episode last year. So that was fun. Thanks for reminding me of that. Yeah, I tell you, the horse energy is one that is really interesting. I think it's energy and it's passion. It's kind of unbridled freedom, and that's brought out not only some great songs, but also just kind of an energy. It's kind of like an energy baseline, which I think has been a lot of fun lately. And even Brett this morning was saying he was bouncing around, and I think it's got that kind of energy in general. And so I'm happy to do it, and I think the fire element adds a lot to it. It just, I think, probably intensifies everything. So it's a powerful year, and I can see some of that in the songs and also just in the world, I suppose. So it's an interesting time.
Yeah, for sure. And the fire horse, for me, I had to kind of go look it up what the year of the horse maybe means and what the fire element means of it. Tons of articles you can find on this actually, and the one that I kind of landed on was The Guardian, with an article explaining by Maya Yang talking about the Lunar New Year and the focus on it's a rare pairing, apparently, in the 60-year lunar cycle that we have a fire horse. It blends reputation for energy and independence, like you said, Sean. And the word that kind of kept coming up for me was intensity. And obviously, that's something that you can like think about intense songs. You can think about, some of them that I was picking were a little bit more on the like upbeat, almost arena rock side. Not all of them, but and then there was kind of the word that she used in here too that I thought was cool, was forthright. People born in horse years are forthright, and that does kind of lean into some of the themes that I had too, which is a little bit of like brutal honesty, and something as I'm going into this Lunar New Year into this Fire Horse year, uh, you know, maybe not with the most aggressive like confidence, but like trying to think about that and being real and authentic and forthright. I thought was a pretty good word about that. So, Brett, Fire Horsey, and you being pretty knowledgeable on this far more than me, do you know why it's fire or the double fire horse? Did either of you all dig into what those mean?
Yeah, so the way I understand the Chinese zodiac is the elements rotate. I don't know exactly how they rotate or how that happens, but there's four elements, and so they change, which gives a sort of nuance to the 12 zodiac signs that are represented by animals. So horse is already a fire element, and it's the time for the fire element to also be represented. So that's why it's a double fire horse, or what I've heard some people call an alpha fire horse, meaning it's its own element. It's in its own element during its own season. Anyway, so that's all I really fully understand about the zodiac stuff. I didn't really dig into that too much. What I did do though is sort of feel into the fire element and the horse element just in my own body and in the world around us, what's happening. There does seem to be this, like I think about a horse to begin with, stampedes. Typically, they sort of blaze through. They don't necessarily notice or pay attention to what's around them. They're just going in the direction that they're going, especially when a horse is in an anxious state. which I would say in a fire element can bring some arousal or anxiety, depending on how you react to that kind of fiery feeling. So I think about Fire Horse or Alpha Fire Horse, Double Fire Horse being a season of do what is important to you, almost selfishly. And there's a bit of like, for me, just like trust that on the other side of that, we will all be more who we are, and there may be destruction along the way, metaphorical or actual. Things letting go, like burning bridges. Just do you, do it now. That sort of seems to be the theme to me for Alpha Fire Horse.
Very cool. Double
So
alpha
I'm
fire
curious
horse.
about what you picked up on, because I know that this has been that horse and these zodiacs have been something that you've studied for Notsuo and some other things in the past. So I'd be curious to hear your take on it all.
Well, you said it well, and I won't repeat any of that. To me, it was kind of horse is a shot of adrenaline, and then fire makes it a double shot of adrenaline. So it it was it's kind of ready to go. And I think in some ways, maybe I'm feeling horsey right now because I'm like, we have a song that is teed up at track number one that is like ready to go, and so yeah, I mean, I think there's like that double shot of adrenaline in my blood right now, and I think it just feels very fire horse at the moment.
Well, well, it feels like maybe we've got Rhett and Murray and Philip and Ken Bethay sitting on side stage being like, we're ready to go. Get off the mic, morons. Let's start getting to the songs. So I'm happy to tee it up right now for you, Sean, with track one, with Old 97's Time Bomb, which came from you. Take it away.
Yeah, like you said, Old 97s, which is a band we all like. I set the order for the playlist, and that was part of why I wanted to put it at the top, is to come out sprinting. It's 175 BPM, or at least above 170, and so it's kind of that racing pulse, I guess. This is usually their set closer or their encore track, and I thought it would be fun to invert it and drop it at the top. This is, even like when we've gotten together for trips that we've taken together, we've centered the trip around being able to see the old 97s. So it's one of those bands that sits right at the center of Stone Soup because it sits right at the center of us three. It's all energy and barely contained passion and drive forward. It's got kind of a untamable spirit, and you hear that straight away from Ken's guitar intro. In fact, even in the video, it is so fast that like it's almost like he can barely play it note for note. It's almost a little bit more maybe like it's not a studio track, but like if you want to hear, because his guitar lead I think is fantastic. It's just it's like instantly recognizable, and it's the kind of moment like you hear those first two or three notes and you shoot out of your chair and you're kind of ready for it. So I love that, but I think it's also funny how you know could is there such a thing as being too fast? And then the video, I looked around a lot at a lot of these live shows. I wanted to capture one of the live videos because I thought it was important to show, like Phillips drumming. It's kind of in the background, but he is absolutely flying on the snare. And then even take a look at the hi-hat and how fast his left foot is just in the beat. And then Murray's thumb picking on the bass. He's playing way up the neck. So it's not really as much of a backtrack as maybe a bass guitar might normally be. It's very much in the higher register and kind of giving like a singing part to it. And I just think it just kind of goes on and on, like Rhett's like heavy metal hair, and then even his like windmill arm strum. I felt like I had to capture those things. I had to capture the fact that Murray's jamming so hard that he can't see out of his glasses because there's so much fog. It's just typical old 97s, and I love that part. in the video, they do an interview first. So the song starts 2 minutes, 22 seconds into it. And the interview is pretty good. It's a nice little story around the band and how they've looked at their career and things like that. It's set on the San Marcos River. And so that's pretty nice. But, in the end, I think I just wanted to share the old 97s and Time Bomb because it was the most it was the thing that lurched into my brain very first when we thought of this theme, and I just knew this was right in the Venn diagram of bands we can't live without for all three of us. This is one that's right at the center, and so I thought let's celebrate episode 34 and the fact that we've been doing this for a couple of years now and keeping the beat going across the episodes and across the podcast by celebrating with old 97s sprinting from the gate straight away. So Grant, you got the t-shirt on. I think we got to go to you next.
Yeah, it's a t-shirt that I don't get to break out as often anymore because it's all like weird fitting and smelly. So a good thing it's not a smellable podcast today. But man, what a band that's meant so much to us. We've talked about them before. Um, the live, I'm glad that you went to a live show because there is even the album version of the song shreds, but then when you see it live and the hair flipping and the sweat and the energy and the like tempo kind of creeping up a little bit and Murray just kind of doing the Murray thing and keeping the oh and the like yodeling, all of it together. I like also when people get to see the video that you added with the interview at the beginning to get a little flavor of their personality and the fact that they wanted to be a band for a long time doing with creating music with longevity. I love that. And I think there's kind of no better band that embellishes or what's the word, embodies that than these guys. It's awesome that they're from our hometown. I think they define a lot of our upbringing, as we've talked about. I'm glad you brought up Philip because this song is like Philip at like should be center stage, and I think the stage on the live scene that you show. I mean, he's kind of forward because they're probably one other band of a festival before some bigger band shows up. Which in my head, what bigger band is there? But whatever. Philip Peoples. There's an article on moderndrummer.com back from 2004 that said Philip Peoples was once known locally as the guy who loaned his drums to the old 97's drummer, but later became the old 97's drummer. I was like, I didn't know that. I thought Philip was just part of the crew from the beginning. But apparently there was some other drummer that he was like, hey, borrow my snare. And then he said he checked the band out and I was like, huh. And he went up to Ken Bethea, the guitarist, and said, hey, y'all looking for a drummer? Hello, I could be your drummer. And like, that was it. The article's funny where he says early on the band would play a lot of train chugging songs. When I started playing those shuffle beats, they were like, that's the kind of drummer we need. And like, 35 years later, here we are. So I thought that was a cool nugget I didn't know about Philip. And it's such like he's just one of my favorite. He talks about in the interview too, where the motivation, like he's like, yeah, what's motivating for me? And I'm like, well, dude, you got to be as motivated and energetic and like on par because the beats that these songs are going to require are all over the spectrum, and Time Bomb really stresses it. So, man, I loved it. It was a great opener. I could talk about old 97s all day long. Um, the other part is on lyrics, or sorry, genius.com. Sometimes I would love to scroll down to the bottom to see like, does anybody get a chance to explain the lyrics or the inspiration? In this case, there is. It says the song replaced "If My Heart Was a Car," which is from Hitchhike to Rome, used to be their encore, and then Time Bomb became that when Too Far to Care came out, which makes total sense. The Celeste part that Rhett sings, I did not know this. Another fun fact. It's explained as it says now 21-year-old stepdaughter of Ken Bethea. Or no, stepdaughter of Ken Bethea's friend, not of Ken Bethea. Okay. It says no hanky panky involved, but after Rhett had earlier forgotten to dedicate a song to her, he decided to use her name in Time Bomb instead. I've always thought that Celeste, first, it took me a few understandings that he's singing a name, not just like hollering something, which then I thought was cool. And I'm like, well, who's Celeste? And now, 30 some odd years later, we get to finally learn. It's such a cool story. It's also like this poetic stanzas that he inserts, fun, unique. The police don't like me. I got it for this stick leg girl. She's in my head again. He references things like Claymore and just he pulls all these literary things into song lyrics that I think only Rhett Miller can. And that's one of the reasons I think we still really love them and love the band, and they continue to churn out awesome stuff. So Brett, I'll let you take it from there on Time Bomb.
Yeah, you guys covered a lot of ground. I like a fire horse, just a stampede of information there. I think probably the thing that's lingering for me is the songwriting from Rhett Miller. Um, how catchy the tunes are. I think what you're naming there, Grant, is like hearing the sound sonically and then like digging into the lyrics. Like there's layers and layers of storytelling that happens that I really love. Just like you said, echoing that like 30 years later, we're still discovering aspects of like who characters are in these stories. I think that's really, really cool. And also unnecessary in order to like sonically rock out, like knowing that this was coming and waking up this morning, the gym actually wasn't open. So instead, I turned on Too Far to Care, full blast, and danced around the room to Time Bomb and then Barrier Reef and was hollering out about being Stuart Ransom Miller, being the serial lady killer, like all these characters that just pervade the songwriting. And then to have the sonic landscape be as rich as it is, and then to have all those memories of being in Deep Ellum in a upstairs tiny space with them in the corner of the room and Rhett just swinging his hair and them going crazy. I mean, it was, it's in my body. And that's always a joy. So I love that you threw this one right that at the top, Sean. I actually didn't know the history about this being their encore and their closer. So that's pretty cool to flip the script. That feels very appropriate for the Firehorse scene. Plus, Time Bomb. I mean, you got bomb in there, so you've got some incendiary aspects to this, not just being a blazing song, but actually being about some explosion.
No doubt. Well, let me add one more thing here to the story because you reminded me of this when you two were talking. Is that uh, their first album, which was a little more kind of alt country or a little bit maybe more traditional, was 1994. So this is when I had graduated and basically moved to New Orleans and wasn't really a Dallas local anymore. So, but I still was tuned in to the Adventure Club. And when Hitchhike to Rome came out, it was hitting Adventure Club. And so, we're listening to it, and Grant was doing a good job of sharing tapes. And so I'm listening to Adventure Club by way of Grant, or sometimes I would pick up the songs some other way. And then it was a couple years later, and I remember this so clearly. It was the first song on one of the Adventure Clubs, and you recorded it, Grant, on a tape, and you sent it to me and said, "You have to listen to this." The first song's Old 97s, and it's totally different, and it was Time Bomb, and it was one of those moments where I even think again from the first three notes, I was completely hooked because I had already found an appreciation for this band with this older, kind of more traditional style. And then it was like they had decided that they wanted to have a huge party when they played live. And so let's write some burn down the house tracks and then go light the stage on fire. And that tape, because I had never seen this song live. In fact, I'm not even sure I had seen the old 97s live. It was just it was a band that I knew about really just through the Adventure Club, and that was because I was living in New Orleans at the time and just wasn't in Dallas nearly as much. So I appreciate that, Grant, about you feeding me what I needed at that point, and keeping me connected to where we grew up, even though you know. New Orleans is so rich, I was taking in a massive influx of different style of music. So I sort of needed your help there, and you did. And then the last thing I'll just say is um, Ken's part and Rhett's part in the song is so dominant that it really makes me pine for some stems with just Murray and Phillip. I would love to just hear the backbeat because those guys are playing so fast and so um, artfully that I would love to hear just that, just as a way to geek out on it. So, listeners, Stone Soup Nation, if you know how to get these stems, contact us because we're dying to hear it. So,
Yeah. Has there ever been a song exploder on Old 97's song? We should,
Not that I'm aware
not that
of,
I'm aware of. I would love.
but I listen to one song with Diallo and Luxury all the time, and Song Exploder. I love when they pull the stems apart and you can hear the brilliance. But even like some of the kind of the hidden parts of it, a lot of times things are multi-tracked, or you're picking up extra little studio relics or artifacts that are really fun. I think something like this would be really fun because these guys are clever, and uh, they're up for a laugh.
For a laugh in a great fire horsey way. Such a great story with the old 97s and kind of our brotherhood and our growing up and moving on, but yet they've always been there. And I think that's a precious thing. Although precious is probably the least word to come to mind when you think about the onslaught of Time Bomb that's about to happen in folks' ears. The other thing I'll mention is old 97s, very twangy, very Western, very alt country, but never had a horse on their album cover until last year with American Primitive is the one that's got a horse on it. Old 97s, or Too Far to Care, in 1997 has the cowboy and Indian pointing, figurines at each other with a whole bunch of cactus out front. Every old 97's cover has a little bit of lore to it, I think. And Too Far to Care, when it came out in June of 1997, I was like about to go off to basic training. So I remember being at a record store when they were there signing it and like buying it. And it wasn't Bill's Records and Tapes. It was like some other store in Dallas, and being there with the guys signing records as they went was pretty cool. And then hearing it and then going off to the military thing for a while. This was one of the CDs that I had hidden as a freshman. You're not allowed to have CDs until I figured out a loophole, but I was able to have 6 CDs that I was hiding in a graham cracker box with one set of unopened graham crackers on top. So 6 CDs fits perfectly in a graham cracker box. Anyway, this was one of the 6 CDs that I had stuck in there so that I could listen to it until I got my full rack. So if that says anything, uh, that means a lot. So Sean's got the
There's
opening track.
Air Force tip coming to you live from.
Yeah. So let's get to it. You're going to hear kind of a live interview on this clip. I think it's like a Texas music scene, awesome video, and then man, just a shredder of a live scene, an encore apparently of Time Bomb, performed by Old 97s off of their 1997 album Too Far to Care.